Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of Rick and Morty Season 8, the entire season. From Zack Snyder and James Gunn cameos to the return of Wubba Lubba Dub Dub. We are breaking down all the Easter eggs, hidden details, and callbacks to previous episodes that you might have missed. Thanks for your patience on this one. And if you can, we would love it if you checked out our merch store, nerdriot.shop, where we have all kinds of really cool nerdy designs. Like I'm wearing this interesting Wayland Yutani loader design, and I love this shirt and we're wearing it all the time. Grabbing one of these is just a great way you can support what we're doing here at New Rockstars. And a big thanks to Gina Ippolito for writing this video. All right, the season 8 premiere is titled The Summer of All Fears, after the Tom Clancy book turned movie, The Sum of All Fears. The film was a political thriller with Ben Affleck as a CIA analyst, Jack Ryan, trying to avert a nuclear war between the United States and Russia, foreshadows the reveal that Summer is one pulling all the strings in this false flag operation and war inside the Charger Matrix. Rick puts Summer and Morty in a matrix to teach them a lesson after they borrow his phone charger and don't return it. They spend the mental equivalent of almost 20 years in there. And during that time, Summer becomes CEO of a tech company and Morty goes to prison, joins the military, where he gets killed and respawns time after time after time and watches his best friend die. He suffers from PTSD and becomes a hermit in a cabin in the woods like Bob Lee, Swagger, and Shooter. When they get out of this matrix, equipped with their new adult knowledge and personalities, Morty turns the tables and puts Rick in a matrix to teach him a lesson about how you shouldn't put people in a matrix. Rick hacks his way out by putting all of his matrix people into pods and using them to power his way back out into the real world. When he escapes, we get the return of Rick's Wubba Lubba Dub Dub catchphrase that he said the most in season 1.
Matrix my ass! Wubba Lubba Dub Dub!
Meanwhile, middle-aged brain Summer tries to overhaul her mom's life in a passive-aggressive and almost outwardly bitchy way. They end up in a Santa Fe pottery class wearing turquoise jewelry with other middle-aged / new agey women. Summer first mentioned moving to the Midwest and doing something with turquoise in the season 1 episode Rick's D Minutes.
I'm gonna move to the Southwest and I don't know, do something with turquoise.
Morty hijacks Rick's death cable mobile, which he used his skills learned in the Matrix to upgrade, and drives it into the Power Charge Valley in the central power plant to take out all of the cell phones because he's still got PTSD. The nuclear reactor goes off, but Rick easily saves them. Rick wipes Morty and Summer's memories of their time in the Matrix using his memory gun that we first saw in the Morty's Mind Blowers episode. They turn back into regular teenagers, although Morty is stuck with a tattoo of a phone charger on his arm. There's a bunch of fun Matrix Easter eggs throughout this episode. Summer has a Carrie-Anne Moss's Trinity coded haircut. When Rick gets put in his own Matrix, there's a poster for Blue Pilsner on the wall, a play on the blue pill, red pill scene from the original film. There's also a place next to him called White Rabbit. There's also just a ton of plug and charger and tech related jokes throughout. The town they're trapped in is called Chargeria. The news network in the Matrix is CMYK News. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, the 4 main ink colors and printers. The magazines on CEO Summer's office wall are parodies of famous real-world magazines. There's Charging Stone for Rolling Stone, Better Homes and Chargers for Better Homes and Gardens, and The New Charger, done in the same cover style as The New Yorker. The terrorist, who turns out to be a false flag actor hired by Summer to gain access to an endless supply of lithium, is named Osama bin Chargin. Summer's necklace is a plug. Signs in the crowd read, God created outlets and charge belongs in the wall. A poster in Morty's prison cell reads, Sock it to me, and another is a parody of the Raquel Welch poster from the movie 1 Million Years BC, famously used for Andy Dufresne's prison escape and the Shawshank Redemption. In the post-credit scene, it's revealed that the middle-aged Santa Fe hippie women are vampires who feed on the young to stay middle-aged. Season 8, episode 2 is titled Valkyrick and is a Rick and Space Beth siloed adventure story. The title is a play on the 2008 Tom Cruise film Valkyrie, set in Nazi Germany during World War II, about the failed assassination attempt on the German High Command. Space Beth has been working with the Galactic Defiance, who have been in a summit to decide whether or not to assassinate the queen of the Gromphlomites, the insect species who were in charge of the Galactic Federation. While the Defiance debates, Space Beth gets impatient and goes rogue to kill the queen herself, which is a very Rick thing to do. When she gets there, she discovers that the queen has already been assassinated and she gets in hot water while trying to escape. She calls her dad, who's eating sushi in his basement sushi restaurant that we saw briefly in the season 7 finale, Rictional Mort Poon's Rickmas Mortcation. Sushi chef Hiro mentions his restaurant is now the highest rated in the garage sublevels. Restaurant ratings are a running gag in this episode. Beth passes by a B grade on the Gromphomite window, and 2 of the bugs later wonder if they got a B because of all the rats in the walls. Lots of cities like Los Angeles have a grading system that lets customers know how restaurants did with health and safety ratings. Trust me, you do not want to eat at a place with a C or a below, unless it's like a place I like to eat at. You know, I live in the present. I care about what I put in, don't care about what comes out later. Space Beth calls Rick, and the other contacts listed on her phone are Beth number 2. The audience still doesn't know which Beth is the clone and which is the original. That's kind of like the forever gag with them. Bug Ann, she's a member of the Defiance who later flirts with Rick. Space Beth later tells her dad not to her coworker. Cassale, well, it's not clear who she is. Corsica, that's the Defiance robot who looks like one of the pit droids from Star Wars. Then Dad, then Douglug, and in parentheses it says neighbor, and then Dr. Wong, that's a family therapist who's voiced by Susan Sarandon, who we first met in the Pickle Rick episode. There's a new season intro sequence which wasn't shown before the season 8 premiere. This one starts with the same severed hand, eye, and hourglass scene that evokes the Twilight Zone, followed by the green aliens almost eating Morty like it has for every season. The first new scene is a giant Rick hand with a Space Beth thumb fighting a giant Morty with a regular Beth thumb in a boxing arena and an audience of giant feet cheering them on. Then it's a family as goats nibbling a trash can while tiny Jerry's watched from a mouse hole. Then it's Rick and Morty fighting in a hallway. Rick is wearing a sailor outfit and they both have pointy ears like Vulcans. Then Rick and Mr. Nimbus as lovers in an underwater palace. Rick has gills on his neck and they grab each other's butts. Then it's a family as Tetris pieces with level 8 since it's season 8, and I love that the Jerry piece is the one messing up the game, and it ends with the flying creature chasing them like in the other seasons. Justin Roiland once said that every scene from the opening will happen eventually, he just doesn't know when, but who knows if that's still the case now that he's not really involved with the show in the writer's room anymore. Rick goes to rescue Space Beth. He has a gun that shoots quicksand, and he explains that it has a sign reading quicksand for clarity. There was a joke in last season about Rick giving Morty a series of guns that shot things he wasn't expecting, so this seems to be building on that.
Maybe just stop giving me guns?
Or make them less ambiguous. Way ahead of you. This is a gun that you only use to shoot bad people.
Jeffrey Dahmer?
The Defiance kicks Beth out, and the Gronfalmites cover up the death of the Queen, so Rick and Beth go to investigate. They rough up a supremacist arms dealer who tells them Fantabulous, the former royal doctor, is behind all of this. Turns out he has a super soldier spore formula that turns the bugs into giant strong Hulk bugs. Rick tries to get an insect on his side by saying they'd be unlikely allies like Slimer in the Ghostbusters. After the Ghostbusters film came out, there was an animated series called The Real Ghostbusters, and in it, Slimer was kind of like a mascot of the four main characters and helped them to hunt other ghosts. Rick and Space Beth do the classic explain the plan while we see the plan plot device.
Step 1. We blend in as bugs working for the Department of Transportation. My guy Cisco will be at the back door at 7 a.m.
Who's Cisco?
My inside man, don't worry.
But Rick's bug contact, Cisco, doesn't show up, and the plan goes sideways, and the voice narration turns into them arguing about the plan going sideways.
If he doesn't show up at 7, we're 2 humans in bug costumes banging on a door until the cops find us. Then we're running and gunning.
Later in the post-credit scene, Cisco wakes up from a drug bender and freaks out that he missed Rick's plan. Beth gets stabbed by a bug, and she gets infected by the super soldier serum and starts turning into a bug person. Rick gets his Slimer moment when he teams up with the bug military commander, voiced by the amazing Stephen Root.
Then perhaps in you lies the cure.
Was stepping from the shadows meant to give that more weight?
No, my pen rolled into the corner.
Rick cures the infection and, along with Space Beth and the commander, enlists the help of Bird Person and his highly skilled assassin Bird Daughter to infiltrate the underground spore hive. Along the way, Bird Person says he wants to remove Jean from the text thread. Jean is Rick's neighbor who went along with them for adventures in the season 7 episode How Poopy Got His Poop Back. The group delivers a cure payload to the spore hive, saves the day, and Rick and Space Beth get medals in a scene reminiscent of the end of Star Wars A New Hope. This is the first episode where Morty never appears and isn't even talked about because it was such a solo adventure. Reception of this one was a little mixed online. Season 8, Episode 3, The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly. This title is a play on the 1966 Clint Eastwood Western, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, which also had 3 men forming an uneasy team-up. The movie, like this episode, also had a lot of epic fights and deaths. Rick and Morty collect space wreckage from the destroyed Citadel in space. They drive by the remains of dead Andy, the Citadel's ampersand mascot. Rick gives Morty crap for playing with a fidget spinner. A bit of wreckage cracks the ship's windshield, and Rick has to set down on a nearby asteroid to repair it. The asteroid is populated by the Citadel's Morty clones, who had no home to return to when it was destroyed, and just stayed on the closest thing to the Citadel's old location. They pass by a ton of Morty variants here. Cow Skull Morty, the bartender Arcade Morty, and the not really a Dr. Doc Morty. Those last two are designed to look like Doc and Marty from Back to the Future Part 3. One of the Mortys reads Sex Vogue magazine, which has an ad for booze that for some reason also has a cat in it. Rick and Morty set down on a farmer's crystal field. Crystals are the MacGuffins throughout the series, and they're different colors and have different purposes. Often they're what Rick and Morty are trying to get before their real adventure begins. Homesteader Rick doesn't take too kindly to strangers around these parts, so he threatens main Rick and Morty with a shotgun. They fix their ship and take off. The rest of the episode follows Homesteader Rick, Citadel Rick clones, and the Morty clones. Main Rick and Morty don't return until the very end. Homesteader Rick goes about his day, grinding down the crystals, feeding his mutant pigs, and going to town to get more farming equipment. It's all set to the Wood Brothers' Luckiest Man. His license plate reads B6RA1D5, part of the ongoing bit that Ricks hate to name things and just name everything Booger AIDS. Rick clones raid the town and kidnap the Morty clones, shooting Homesteader Rick in the process. And again, there are a ton of fun Rick variants in this episode. There's a bandit Rick, a buff Rick with snake tattoos, a skinhead Rick, a mohawk Rick, and an electric whip Rick. They take the Morty clones to the new citadel that they're trying to get going. And there's even more Rick variants here, including one that's singing and looks like he's modeled on Dolly Parton. The elevator operator is Odd Job Rick, modeled after the bodyguard from the James Bond film Goldfinger. Later, when all hell breaks loose and everyone starts fighting, Odd Job Rick uses his bowler hat to decapitate someone, just like Odd Job did in that movie. The man he works for is Boss Hog Rick, who has an overdone southern accent and is modeled after the villain with the same name from the Dukes of Hazzard. The clones are trying to revive the Citadel, mastering cloning technology to create more clones and get portal fluid for their portal guns. Homesteader Rick gets patched up by his farming robots, but when he gets home, he finds that the clone Ricks trashed his farm and killed his clone pig, so he's gonna go all John Wick on them. They even took a crap on his floor after finding his Tori Amos CD and made the crap spell out, "What grown man listens to Tori Amos?" Later, his killing spree is set to her little earthquakes. Arcade Morty and Doc stow away in Homesteader Rick's ship because they want to rescue the kidnapped Mortys. Homesteader Rick is revealed to be not just another clone like the other Ricks, but the head cloning scientist from the Citadel. He makes a super buff kaiju giant Morty clone that destroys the Rick clones and the Citadel and redeems himself by freeing the Mortys and sending them back to the asteroid in his ship before he gets taken out. Arcade Morty works to find the Morty clones' new planets so they can start making their own memories. Straw Morty gets to go to a planet with a huge wheat field. Cow Skull Morty goes to a cow planet. Middle-aged Morty goes to a casino planet. And Miner Morty goes to a mining planet. Arcade Morty goes back to the asteroid to live by himself. And main Rick and Morty portal back to find Morty's lost fidget spinner from the start of the episode. In the episode tag, the sentient gambling dice that the Rick clone used for gambling purposes emerge from the wreckage of the Citadel and start fighting each other. Season 8, Episode 4, The Last Temptation of Jerry. This title is an obvious play on The Last Temptation of Christ, the controversial 1988 Martin Scorsese film starring Willem Dafoe as Jesus. This episode has a ton of literal Easter eggs hidden throughout because it's an Easter episode. It's Easter, and Jerry is super into the holiday, but the rest of the family, not so much. Jerry goes for a drive, and there are some Easter eggs hidden by the side of the road. He hits and kills the Easter Bunny, and Rick tells him it's Tim Allen's Santa Claus rules, so Jerry is now turning into the new Easter Bunny. Rick scans the dead bunny's necklace. It's 13th century German, and the scanner shows it's an image of people offering an Easter egg to a religious figure. Rick says he and Morty are gonna Dan Brown that necklace, a reference to the author Dan Brown's thriller mystery novels, most famously The Da Vinci Code. He throws in even more pop culture film references when he tells Morty, "Let's Indiana Jones this." And just like in Indiana Jones, a large map pops up and they travel by map, although they use a portal to go straight from one location to another. Before he left, Rick encased Jerry in a mitogen deterrent to slow the transformation. He tasks Beth with watching over Jerry and tells Summer to go enjoy her spring break trip in Daytona.
Here's a fake ID and a second alcohol stomach. I want you to do some Molly and throw up in a pool.
No, don't. I love you, Grandpa Rick.
Come on, Morty, to the Alps!
There are more Easter eggs hidden behind rocks. Some permafrost has melted and the Easter Bunny broke free. Rick says,
God, I do not want to say climate change on this show. I don't know which way Zaslav voted.
Okay, so David Zaslav is the current CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, which owns Adult Swim and Rick and Morty. Since Trump's election in 2024, David Zaslav has been pretty chummy with the president and given many interviews implying Trump is good for his business. Rick and Morty walk into a German town and there are more Easter eggs hidden here on one of the roofs and the windowsills. Morty says, "Look at this Wicker Man looking place," because the residents burned sticks and straw in the shape of bunnies. Just before this, Rick made a reference to the movies Iceman and Encino Man, and Morty called him old, even though arguably, if we're going with the original Wicker Man, that movie is the oldest of the three. Rick scans a large stained glass window mosaic containing images of the Easter Bunny. Glass shards fly out of it and form a colorful Easter egg, which Rick determines is from the Andromeda Galaxy. A group of alien space Christians intercept Rick and take the egg off planet. Rick Rick and Morty follow them to see that the native species on the planet are very much like the engineers in Prometheus, except they have butts in the front. Later, when it cuts back to Rick, he's just finished explaining the plot of Prometheus to Morty, and so there are a lot of alien things in this planet. Future Easter bunnies are trapped inside of chocolate egg carriers that are reminiscent of the black goo plods in Prometheus. Rick at one point says it's all very H.R. Giger meets Coachella, referring to the famous artist who designed much of the interior of the derelict spacecraft in the 1979 film. The clouds on the Andromeda Galaxy look like peeps, and the rocks look like Easter eggs. The sewage system clearly looks like a butt, and there's chocolate running out of it because, it's still Rick and Morty, and they're probably legally required to make one butt or poop joke for every H.R. Giger reference. Rick realizes that the aliens come to Earth on their ships that look like the Moai statues on Easter Island. The Christian aliens hate sex and are disgusted by it, even in portrayals in movies, TV shows, and songs, which is definitely a reference to all the think pieces written about how Gen Z doesn't want any sex in their media. The Easter Bunny would travel to planets and force the population to have sex until the birth rate exploded, thus destroying the planet, so the Christian aliens set out to destroy them. One Christian alien that Rick doesn't destroy is Reinhard Kincaid. He explains that Jesus was sent to Earth to warn them of the Easter Bunny, but the population of Earth crucified him. Rick and Morty leave Kincaid on Andromeda, cut in half but still alive. He's voiced by none other than Evan Moss Backrack.
My species does not like sex.
There's also another hidden Easter egg behind a rock there. Jerry breaks free and grows a tail as his transformation continues. He goes to a bar and starts forcing everyone to bang. There are more Easter eggs hidden by the trash. The bar turned their C-grade health inspection into credit accepted. Jerry says this:
There is no Jerry, only Bonnie.
Which is another Ghostbusters reference after the ones we got in episode 2, Valkyrick.
There is no Dana, only Soul.
Then Jerry goes full-on Wolfman, transforming and jumping and howling in front of the full moon, shouting, "Time to make There's a bunch of more hidden Easter eggs. There's one in a bush, under the car, and in the tree, and on the porch, and behind the exit sign. Not an exhaustive list, by the way. There are just a lot in this episode. Rick designs a ray to turn Jerry back, but each member of the family ends up getting hit and transforming into the Easter Bunny for a bit. Kincaid comes back to help them when one of the engineer-looking dudes shows up. Kincaid has been dragging his detached and bloody torso all around town. Rick and his family decide that they hate the holidays, and we get a montage of them holidays up over the year, tearing down the Earth Day posters, ruining a family's Cinco de Mayo meal, kicking over a grill at a 4th of July barbecue, tearing the Halloween costume off of a kid dressed as Wirt from Under the Garden Wall, which is another Cartoon Network property, and tearing down and burning Christmas decorations. They realize that summer has been trapped in Daytona at spring break all this time in a sort of never-ending party hell ruled over by a woman named Madison. In the post-credit scene, Kincaid drags his torso back to his wife on his home planet and tells her he wants to have sex now, but she rejects him, in part because he doesn't even have a lower half anymore. We live in a physical world full of objects, and that makes us think everything behaves like an object. The dog is here, the dog is there, I can keep track of a dog, but data doesn't work like that. Your data can get copied and sold without you ever knowing about it. Delete Me makes it easy to take control of your data because they agree that your data should be yours and yours alone. Delete Me is a hands-free subscription service that helps you reduce the risks of identity theft and scams by removing your data from hundreds of data broker sites. It's super easy to use. You take 5 minutes to submit your info to Delete Me. Their experts comb through the internet looking for places your data shouldn't be, and they remove it and send you a report on what they've done. Delete Me works all year long to remove things like your name, address, email address, phone number, and more from data broker sites, and they're constantly adding new features and updating their removal targets to help you get back control over your personal data. Get 20% off Delete Me consumer plans when you go to joindeleteme.com/rockstars and use promo code ROCKSTARS at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/rockstars and use code ROCKSTARS. Thank you, Delete Me, for sponsoring this video. Season 8, Episode 5, Cryo, Mort, a Rickver. Perhaps a reference to the great single by a guy who now has Lyme disease. Rick and Morty are flying through space listening to an NPR-style true crime podcast that's not grisly and exploitative enough for them. They spot a cryo ship and decide to go on board and explore. Rick discovers that the people on board in cryo chambers left their dying planet and are in cryo sleep until they reach their next destination. Rick wants to blow a hole in their ship to steal their safe full of rare space coal and riches and leave them to die. Morty has some ethical issues with this, and the two fight, and an explosion accidentally gets set off, and the cryo chambers wake their occupants up early. Rick and Morty find 2 chambers that seemingly malfunction and kill the people inside, and then get in to blend in with the natives. The ship looks like it's modeled after the one from the Chris Pratt Jennifer Lawrence movie Passengers, where Pratt is accidentally woken up early, and because he's lonely and awful, he wakes Jennifer Lawrence up early too, dooming her to live out her entire life on the ship with only Chris Pratt for companionship. Movies like Planet of the Apes and Alien have shown cryo chambers kill their occupants when they malfunction or rapidly age them, which is what the ship's doctor thinks happened to Rick. Rick took the cryo chamber of an 11-year-old boy, Jimmy Jamerson, whose uber-rich parents are shocked to see their son seemingly aged up into a man that the doctor says could die any day now due to his old age. The Jamersons are determined to spend the time he has left bonding with him and loving him. Rick goes along with it because he finds out that all the rich passengers have access to the vault once they undergo a Constellatio Celebratio, a ceremony which welcomes them into adulthood. The Jamersons plan a big ceremony for Rick. Morty took the cryo chamber of an adult janitor named Chachaco, who spends his time on level 2 with the rest of the working class crew, known as Makies, since they make the ship run smoothly. They all have compliance chips in the backs of their necks to make sure they're doing their jobs and not complaining too loudly about the rich occupants on level 1. When Morty dubs the rich passengers Takies and doesn't experience a pain of getting zapped from the chip in his neck, which he obviously doesn't have, the Makies think he's a badass, and his legend starts to grow. Morty runs into Rick in the halls in a scene that we've seen in the season 8 opening credits. The Makies see Morty punching and kicking Rick, who they think is a rich kid, and they examine Morty and discover he has no chip. They assume he removed it, which they were told would kill them, so they all start ripping their chips out and planning a rebellion, dubbing Morty their general. An uprising is scheduled for during Rick's ceremony. At the ceremony, Jimmy's dad tearfully says his son was always a brat and he's glad he grew into a better person. Later, it's revealed that the real Jimmy and Chachaco put monkeys in their cryo chambers in their place, robbed the vault, and fled to live the high life. So Jimmy absolutely is still a brat. The uprising goes horribly wrong, and everybody on board discovers the empty vault, and a space race to find Jimmy, Chachaco, and their money ensues. It's like a terrible, deadly, gruesome rat race, or it's a mad world. Most of the treasure seekers die. Morty opens the airlock and the treasure gets blasted into space, and Rick puts the survivors into cryo chambers on their way to a nearby planet. He also gives everyone a compliance chip regardless of class. Then he and Morty find another cryo ship to loot. In the post-credits scene, the ship's zoologist, who was crushed when he learned his monkey Lizzie died in Jimmy's cryo chamber, finds another monkey and names her New Lizzie. And he and New Lizzie hit up the casino because New Lizzie is a natural at cards. Season 8, episode 6, The Curicskous Case of Bethjamin Button. This episode starts with a montage set to Where Everybody Knows Your Name, the Cheers theme song of Space and Beth going about their days. Beth gets a late night call into St. Equus, the horse hospital where she works as a horse surgeon, and gets in her car. Space Beth gets an alert at the Defiance barracks and has to go on a space rescue mission and gets in her spaceship. Space Beth kills a lot of aliens and saves some hostages. Beth saves a horse and is thanked by the owner. Both of them are exhausted and unsatisfied with their lives. When they get home, the rest of the family is all set to go to Earth World, a theme park that Rick says is run by a guy named Dr. Dogballs, who loves Earth but has never been there and sucks at making theme parks, so it's awful in a way that thoroughly delights Rick. The Beths snap that they don't want to go and stay home drinking wine and wondering when the last time was that they were happy. Naturally, this leads to them de-aging themselves to 10 years old using Beth's de-ager on her spaceship. It was established in the season 3 episode, The ABCs of Beth, that young Beth was an absolute psychopath, which is why her dad had to build her Fruity Land to keep the neighborhood kids and pets safe from her. So the de-aged Beths immediately go off the rails. They build a treehouse with a bunch of lethal booby traps, watch the Challenger explosion video just for fun. Then when they get bored, they go after the neighbor, Gene. Gene has a box set of hardcover editions of the entire Twilight saga on the top of his dresser, which is just so on brand for Gene. The young Beths slash up Gene, then set his house on fire, then turn against each other. When the rest of the family gets to Earthworld, it's not the fun death trap Rick remembers. Instead, it sort of looks like the Grove or any other outdoor pedestrian mall. There's so many visual gags here. The people who designed the park took a lot of big swings about Earth stuff. There's a human teeth wagon. None of the Earth globes have correct continents on them, and the corn dogs are actually ears of corn with mini dog heads on top. There are Earth characters with giant heads walking around, including one of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Later, we find out that these aren't people walking around with mascot heads on. They're actual genetically engineered monsters with huge heads who eventually go rogue and try to kill everyone in the park. Rick and Summer think this is all lame, but Morty meets a hot alien with an Earth boy fetish, and Jerry is excited that there's a place where you can see presidential pets because he wants to meet Socks, the Clintons' cat. You actually do see Socks in there. There's also Rebecca, a raccoon that was sent to Calvin and Grace Coolidge. The raccoon was meant as a proposed Thanksgiving meal item, but Coolidge kept him as a pet instead. The cow is Pauline Wayne, a pet of William Taft. She was quite popular at the time and went missing once for 2 days. The dogs look like Bo and Sonny. Those are Obama's dogs, though the colors are a bit off. Only 3 presidents in history did not have pets while in office: James K. Polk, Andrew Johnson, and yes, Trump. We see more big head mascots throughout the episode. David Bowie, specifically Bowie from Labyrinth, Steven Seagal, Natalie Portman in Black Swan, Hitler, Marilyn Monroe, John Legend, Nicolas Cage, Stephen King, Princess Diana, Steve Buscemi, Jennifer Lawrence as Katniss Everdeen, Ted Danson, Weird Al Yankovic, Tony Hawk, Count Chocula, and Pennywise the Clown. You can tell the writers and animators just had an insane time with this episode. Rick discovers that some big corporate sponsor people bought the park and they're keeping Dr. Dogballs locked up so he can keep creating mascots. Dogballs is voiced by Danny DeVito, and hilariously, DeVito is one of the big head mascots who ultimately ends up killing and eating Dogballs.
Take it all! Take the other one!
Rick has his phone set up to intercept 911 calls from Gene, so he finds out something is wrong back home. He grabs Jerry, Morty, and Summer and hightails it out of the park. His license plate reads JP3 sucks, a nod to Jurassic Park 3, the Joe Johnston one, where Tia Leone screams Erik a lot.
Erik! Kirby!
Rick gets back home and fixes Gene and his house up, but the Beths push him into the aging machine and age him back up to 360 years old. They beat his ass because they have abandonment issues from their own Rick leaving. The Rick that these Beths are technically mad at is the Rick of her dimension, C-131, who was killed when Rick and Morty took his place after Cronenberging the Prime Dimension back in season 1. Rick reminds him that his Beth died, and he tells him that he's proud of them for aging up and kicking his ass. They work together to get everything back to normal, and once they're adults again in their repeated daily routines, Beth and Space Beth are happier now that they've dealt with some of their daddy issues. In the post-credit scene, we get to hear a slew of Gene's messages to what he thinks are 911 that Rick intercepted, including one about how the house next to him keeps disappearing and reappearing, and how a pigeon showed up and is demanding to see his birth certificate, and how he was eating burger with his hands turned into burgers. Season 8, episode 7, Ricker Than Fiction, also known as the episode where James Gunn and Zack Snyder show up. Rick, Morty, and Jerry watch the 9th installment of the Maximum Velocity saga, a movie about robotic trees that are also action heroes, kind of a Transformers parody that maybe you could also see as like a Maximum Overdrive title reference. The movie is written, directed, and executive produced by James Gunn. The credits on the fake film are mostly people who work on Rick and Morty. Just to go through a few of them, we see director of photography Catherine Wheaton. Wheaton is the office coordinator on Rick and Morty. Art director Daniel Kachatourian. He's Rick and Morty's design coordinator. Producer Jackie Cadiente. Jackie does character design on Rick and Morty. Jerry likes Maximum Velocity 9, but Rick hates it and says that the franchise has gone downhill, and Morty says it was no Citizen Kane, although he later admits that he's never seen Citizen Kane.
I'm 14! I've never seen Citizen Kane!
Rick and Morty go to the Warner Brothers lot to yell at James Gunn, and yes, he voices himself, and the episode takes a few shots at him, so he's a pretty good sport about this. Rick smashes up Gunn's desk, which he says was hand-carved for him by Bradley Cooper. Gunn defends himself.
Making movies isn't easy. The next Maximum Velocity movie has been rewritten 40 times, 30 by me.
In his office is a book that just says comics and another for Super Guy. He's also got 2 Oscars. Rick decides to rewrite Maximum Velocity 10 himself with the help of a machine he created called Movielizer. He takes Gunn's script and feeds it into the machine. There's a hilarious detail where the writer on the script is listed as Alan Smithtree. This is a play on Alan Smithy, which is a pen name writers use when they basically want to distance themselves from what they know will be a terrible film. David Lynch used the name on the version of Dune that was edited for television, but it's been used many times and on many movies. Morty makes fun of the save the cat method of writing films. Screenwriter Blake Snyder coined the term for his book of the same name. It basically means that if you want to establish someone early on as a hero of the film, you have to show them saving a cat or saving some other kind of defenseless creature. Dan Harmon has made fun of this method of writing films as he prefers his own method, the story circle, which is really a simplified version of the hero's journey, both of which were explored in the season 4 episode Never Rick and Morty. All these methods are valid ways to write, by the way, but all have their fans and their detractors. Rick and Morty get sucked into the Movielizer, Tron style, or as Rick says, last action hero style.
Holy cow! I'm in the movie!
Who the hell are you?
They have to figure out a way to end the film to get out of it, but if it's not done in a narratively satisfying way, the movielizer will never allow it to end. You actually see a version of Harmon's story circle on the movielizer keeping track of how the movie is going, and Rick and Morty get dinged by the machine for not having a clear protagonist or a satisfying third act. At the Warner Brothers commissary, James Gunn runs into Zack Snyder, also voiced by himself, also being a good sport.
Just saw your new cut of Superman, and word of advice, do more shots of him punching, and here is a secret move. Start the punch at regular speed, and then you're gonna ramp it down.
It's not a secret.
Despite what the Snyder Bros online would like to think, these two are actually friends and have worked on stuff together, so there's no beef there. Harmon himself stepped in to write the dialogue spoken by these two characters, which I'm sure he absolutely loved doing. Gunn goes to Rick's house and spots the movielizer, which he's determined to steal. Inside the machine, Rick and Morty have now become the villains and engage in a high-speed chase through the streets of New York. They drive by a movie theater that's showing Krapopolis, the musical. Krapopolis is another Dan Harmon show. Rick and Morty are defeated and killed by the Velocitrees, successfully ending the film and spitting them back out into the real world. Gunn loves the script and tries to bribe Jerry to give it to him by saying he'll make his book Never Try, Never Fails into a movie. Jerry refuses. Gunn goes back to the Warner Brothers lot where he tells the head of Warner Brothers, Mr. Brothers, that the movielizer could save Hollywood and revolutionize filmmaking. I guess they didn't want to use David Zaslav. Brothers shoots and kills Gunn because he's just as evil as the real head of Warner Brothers. And the way James Gunn is left bleeding out looks similar to the pose Superman makes in the opening shot of James Gunn's Superman film. In the post-credit scene, Rick lets Jerry go inside the movielizer to play out a script for Space Jam 7, but Summer leaves her raptor porn fanfiction script on the belt, and it gets fed in the machine, and Jerry gets boned by raptors while Speedy Gonzalez watches. The outro song is a parody of Bare Naked Ladies' One Week.
It's a maximum velocity.
Season 8, Episode 8, Nomortland is a Jerry-centric episode. The title is a parody of the 2020 film Nomadland, directed by Chloe Zhao, starring Frances McDormand as a widow who travels around the United States in a van. Bearded Jerry is hanging out, eating crackling nut grape cereal. Regular Jerry walks in, chases him outside, and tackles him. The two go to the food court to chat. Bearded Jerry says that he's a traveler from another dimension who slips through the cracks of the multiverse. He calls it the road. He brings regular Jerry with him via an entrance in the back of his closet to another universe where everyone speaks to one another only in blah blah blahs. They travel through an infinite mirror tunnel to a universe that's frozen over. The universe is Jerry, Beth, Morty, and Summer all froze to death in the front yard in a hug circle. Then they go into a world made of yarn that's very Yoshi's Woolly World coded, I'd say. Then the universe from the opening credits where mini Jerrys watch the goat family munch down the metal canister. In this one, there's a framed Titanic poster on the wall. Jerry, remember, is a huge Titanic fan, as we saw in the season 1 episode Rick See Business. Then there's a hippie universe with a vibed out Morty and hippie Rick and hippie Beth. There's a world where Rick turned the moon into a huge disco ball for Morty's winter formal and ends up reflecting too much light onto the earth and burning it, but still, it was a nice thought. The Jerrys miss a connecting portal, so they have to travel via a less than desirable route known as Grand Central, where a society of Jerrys who got left behind camp out. Bearded Jerry is known here as Mooch, presumably because he's constantly showing up to places and eating other Jerry's cereal. They bribe the Jerry in charge to get them home, but he ends up blacklisting them, pinning their photos to a board that includes other banned Jerrys, including Fish Jerry, dumping them in Mooch's universe and cutting them off from the road. Jerry finds out that Mooch left his universe because he felt unappreciated, stayed way too long, and when he came back home, he found out that his Beth had remarried. Her new husband is Paul Fleischman, who we saw on the Jerry Baree episode, where he specifically stated that in some universes, Beth remarried. Jerry forces Mooch to go to the house and confront his family instead of running from his problems. Turns out they all have beards in this universe. Jerry now eats Mooch's cereal, Nutland Grape Cracks. Everyone's pretty pissed at Mooch for leaving to travel the multiverse, but he apologizes and they make up, and Bearded Rick restores the path through Grand Central. Jerry and Mooch escape from the Left Behind Jerrys into a Picasso-esque reality. They keep running from the Jerry in charge through a bunch of realities, trying to backtrack their original route. They eventually get back to main Jerry's home, and the Mooch goes back out on the road. In the post-credit scene, Rick and Jerry watch Naked and Alone together, naked while eating popcorn. Season 8, Episode 9, Morty Daddy. The family eats breakfast, and Jerry asks,
"Is someone requesting pancakes? Because it feels like we eat them all the time."
This is a meta joke because they are always shown eating pancakes, probably to save time and money by reusing old animation cells. Junior, Morty's son from when he boned the Gazorpian sex robot back in season 1, calls him from the hospital.
Oh!
Hey, Junior.
Morty goes to see him. On the hospital's TV, Junior watches a game show version of Downbeat, the game that we've seen the family play a bunch of times, and no one really knows how to play.
We're not gonna finish playing Downbeat?
What, that dice game where you shake dice and yell out downbeat? No, thank you.
The host says,
"Contestants, you know the rules."
And then Junior pauses the TV, continuing the gag that no one will ever know the rules. Junior looks old now because of the lifespan of Gazorpians. Morty thinks he's dying, and Junior asks him,
I was hoping you'd help me make peace with my mother.
Throughout the episode, Junior, who was a semi-famous author for writing a book about Morty being a bad father, hints that he has a bunch of kids, owes child support.
You think I'm proud of any of my life choices?
Yeah, I did hear about the soft canceling.
Oh.
Morty and Junior go through a portal to a place where Rick dumps all his trash. It's ruled over by Salvatron, a Rick invention that sifts through this trash to let Rick know if he threw out anything useful. All the Salvatron robots are voiced by Charlie Day, and the main one definitely has Eye of Sauron vibes. He scans Morty and Junior and declares them useful, but he hates talking to Rick, so he decides to just burn them into trash instead. Morty and Junior escape and drop into a mound of trash. In the pile, we see a discarded plumbus.
Today on How They Do It, plumbuses.
Everyone has a plumbus in their home.
A Meeseeks box, some spaghetti, which is probably from the episode where dead people turned into spaghetti and the family ate them. We actually see a can of Morty-O's spaghetti later on. A walking mechanical pizza box leads Morty and Junior to Garbtopia, a society formed by Rick's discarded old inventions. There's a big statue that looks like it's the same one from Fritz Lang's Metropolis. And Morty says,
"There was a while where Rick's inventions could all walk and talk."
This is some more meta commentary of early seasons where Rick was always inventing stuff like the butter robot.
What is my purpose?
You pass butter.
Oh my god.
Which we also actually see later in another trash pile. Oh, poor guy. Junior and Morty find Junior's mom in the robot graveyard where Junior reveals he's not actually dying. He and Morty start to fight about all their old baggage.
Let me punch my asshole, son!
You're both assholes. That conversation you just had about ranking women was gross. It was trash planet talk.
Salvatron shoots a monster and tries to kill Morty. He's rescued by Junior and Junior's robot book fans. They all revolt against Salvatron and overthrow him, claiming Garbtopia for themselves. Meanwhile, Rick and Summer go to a restaurant called Cricskogs, where the chefs are precogs for Minority Report, and they know what meal everyone wants before they even order.
Oh, nice.
The precogs are voiced by Eliza Coupe from Happy Endings. Summer is pissed when they give her subpar avocado toast. Rick gets the precogs out of the restaurant so he can hang out with them, since they anticipate his every want.
Rick does jello shots! Rick does jello shots!
These cogs know what's up!
Jello shot delivery.
Summer drugs Rick and kidnaps the cogs and forces them to admit that she didn't really want avocado toast. They just manipulated the situation so they could escape the restaurant and open a food truck.
Basic.
Rick throws the food truck into the trash universe and Morty makes a break for it to get home. Junior decides to stay there. He writes a sequel to his book titled My Horrible Father 2, Goodbye Sex Mom. It's an international bestseller with millions of copies sold. The post-credits scene is the precogs operating their food truck in Garbtopia.
Voss wants to see you.
Is that a prediction, or...?
Just go talk to him, Steve.
That brings us to episode 10, the season 8 finale, Hot Rick, which is a sad punch of a doozy in a way we've come to sometimes expect from this show. Rick's been sleeping with Bug Ann, one of the leaders of the Defiance who we met earlier in the season. She fought with Rick and Bird Person against the Galactus Federation and has also worked with Space Beth, who specifically asked her father not to bang her coworker. Beth and Space Beth know about the relationship and are both uneasy and grossed out in a normal daughter way. Bug Ann invites Rick to what she describes as a sort of family barbecue on her home planet.
Ugh.
Rick is uneasy as ever, taking things to the next level with someone he's seen since his wife Diane was murdered by Rick Prime years ago. Rick's memories of Diane are pretty muddy and lacking.
The Omega device, the thing evil me used to erase Diane everywhere. It f***s with your mind.
So he doesn't know if there was anything about her that he disliked, so it's hard for any relationship to compete with. At home, the Smiths watch Cake or Fake Celebrity Edition. We've seen them watch this show before in a couple episodes of season 7. The celebrity contestant here is Mr. Stabby.
Do you need a knife, Mr. Stabby? I brought my own!
The TV host who has knives for arms and legs and frequently cuts up his audience when he tries to ask them questions.
You missed it. It was a real baby, not a cake, and Mr. Stabby's canceled now.
When Beth and Space Beth start going in on Rick, Jerry defends him and lists a bunch of suspicious-sounding memories.
Remember him at our wedding? And Morty's birth. And that time he invented PB&J. Rick's great.
Rick scans Jerry's brain and finds Memory Rick in there making new happy memories. Memory Rick was from the Bird Person flashback episode, and then he was left in Jerry's brain after he and Rick shared consciousness in the Jerick trap. Rick invents a device to suck Memory Rick into an ant farm brain, which indeed looks like a brain shoved into an ant farm. Rick then does the same with his memories of his wife, Diane, so he can be more emotionally open, he agrees to go to Bug Ann's family thing with her. Memory Rick hacks the system and uploads himself into Beth's brain. At breakfast, they're eating pancakes again after Jerry called it out last episode that they're often eating pancakes in these breakfast scenes. Beth and Space Beth aren't too happy that Rick removed the memories of their moms.
You took Mom out of your brain?
Inside Beth's brain, Memory Rick drops in on the memory of Rick C-131 leaving young Beth. Since Rick C-131 never went back for Beth, Memory Rick fills that hole.
Beth, my daughter!
We're gonna have so much fun together, sweetie.
Yay!
Then we'll save your mother from a secret underground memory prison.
Yay?
Rick meets Bug Ann's parents, and her dad is voiced by John Rhys Davies, Gimli from Lord of the Rings, also from Sliders and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
You left before the end of the banner raising. Why did you leave? Do I embarrass you?
Not in front of Uncle Scoob, dear.
Rick accidentally mentions to her parents that he and Bug Ann are actually hooking up.
What?
And must engage in a ritualistic battle with her ex-boyfriend since her culture doesn't believe in premarital sex. Since Memory Rick has been messing with her memories, Beth goes to the sub-basement to try to free her memory mom from the ant farm by uploading Memory Diane into her brain. Beth gets interrupted by Space Beth and the two fight, and now Beth is superior and snaps her neck.
This is how we stay a family!
This, plus all her new memories becoming aware that their memories send her off the deep end. Rick portals out of the battle arena, revives Space Beth, and figures out what's going on. Memory Rick runs through the quickly unraveling Beth's recent memories, and there are quick flashes of a bunch of stuff we've seen on this season. Morty working on the death race car from the season premiere, Jerry drinking from the homemade water jug from the Easter Bunny episode, and Beth and Space Beth de-aging themselves. Different versions of Beth's memories start trying to kill Memory Rick and Memory Diane inside Beth's mind. Beth Thelma and Louises it by driving her car off of a cliff. Rick saves her, removes all the rogue memories, and lets Memory Rick and Memory Diane live together forever in an ant farm brain of their own, which he shoots off into space, claiming he's going to remove the memory of all of this from his own brain so that he doesn't have to live with the knowledge that a different version of him got his happy ending. Bug Ann doesn't return Rick's text, and he stares sadly out at space while Kotomi's Don't Look Back plays. We know that song. In the post-credit scene, Mr. Poopy Butthole is giving his wrap-up, not realizing he's being observed by Amy and other scientists.
And you believe this traveler came here to replace your husband?
I know I sound insane and self-centered.
The scientists believe her and ask her,
"What would you have us do with him?"
And that's it for season 8 of Rick and Morty. Again, thanks to Gina Ippolito for finding all this stuff and writing this breakdown. Comment down below with your thoughts. And a special thanks to one of our YouTube members, Far North and Northwest QLD Emergency Services, who supports us at the executive producer level. Get 20% off Delete Me consumer plans when you go to joindeleteme.com/rockstars and use promo code Rockstars at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/rockstars and use code Rockstars. Thank you, Delete Me, for sponsoring this video. Follow me, Eddie A. Voss, and subscribe to all the channels on the New Rockstars Network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.